This is homemade beef jerky. I made upstairs in the kitchen in the oven. So good. You want to learn how to make excellent beef jerky in the oven in your own kitchen for cheap? Just let me know down in the comments, and if I get enough responses, I might just think about making a video on it. How you doing, guys? Happy to see you here. Cheers. Beef jerky and beer, home brew. Homemade beef jerky and homemade home brew. Homemade brew. Beer. Is they go together just like, you know, I mean, there you have it. How much, it doesn't get much better than that. Cheers. So tonight I was actually in the mood to sort of do something that I haven't done in a while. The last time I did this, I came up with a porter recipe that's been since named the CraigTube porter. So what I've got here is I have some, this is a Maris Otter liquid malt extract. It's been in my fridge. I got this a while ago, and I haven't gotten around to using it. I wanted to do something special with it, and I really haven't had a chance to put together something. So this is where it's going to get used. Okay. Probably not as extravagant as I wanted to go with this recipe, or with this using this stuff, which somebody sent in. And thank you, by the way, for that. But I've tried to put together something that I think is going to be fairly interesting. It's not going to take me a lot of time. So what I'm starting with, and I'll show the recipe on the screen in just a moment. I used Beer Smith to kind of balance things out. I've got a Cooper's IPA beer kit to start with, and I've got of course, the Maris Otter. This is 3.7 pounds. Again, I'll put the exact recipe on the screen in a little while. This is 4 pounds here of liquid malt extract. I've got some dry malt extract, 500 grams. Okay, we're doing mixture between metric and US here, but. And I've got some grains here, and I'll put the recipe on the screen right now, so you can have a look at what I've got, including the hop additions. This is one of those things where I thought to myself, I've got all these ingredients that people have sent in, and it's the end of the year, nearly, and I need to get some of these going. So here's the recipe. Now, it's supposed to be like I'm making sort of a dark IPA sort of thing. And, I don't know where this recipe falls in what category it falls into. And you know what? I don't really care. I'm just experimenting here. When I go in the kitchen and I cook something, I make something like a stew or whatever, I don't follow a recipe. I just throw stuff and I go, okay, this is probably work with this. And I'll add a little bit of that and we'll see what happens. And sometimes it's spectacular. Sometimes it's pretty good. And yeah, very little times is it not good. So that's the way I roll with my cooking, and it's also the way I love to roll with my beer brewing. So I'm going to finish up grinding up the grains. I've got the chocolate malt here, and or chocolate grains here, whatever. And I'm going to finish grinding these up, and I'm going to brew this beer. Okay, so you'll follow me along the way, and have myself another. All right, I got my little grain bag here, all set to go. Let's go up and heat up some water. Now, a lot of you that are watching this today know all this stuff, and you're experienced brewers, and you've done all this. But I kind of want to go over this a little bit for new people, and for people who are sort of intermediate brewers, just so they can, they can get this straight in their minds. What we're basically brewing here is called a partial extract beer. that means we're using some extract and some grains, okay? Now, some people have asked me, what's the difference between a partial extract beer and a mini mash beer? Well, a mash, by definition, really, and I'm not quoting this from anywhere, but just from my own words, is when you take a base malt that is full of starch, and you basically convert the starches to sugars by soaking it in hot water. That is a mash, okay? And that's like a chemical reaction, chemical procedure that you do to make beer out of just grains alone, okay? You need the sugars to create the alcohol, and so those grains have the capacity to create sugars when they're soaked in hot water. That's called a mash. Today we're not using those kinds of grains. We're using grains that have been roasted to some degree, and so the potential for converting to sugars has been lost. So we're basically not converting starch to sugars with these grains, the ones I'm using today, right? We're basically just extracting flavor and color from them. So that's more like making tea, and that's called it's not called mashing, it's called steeping, just like you would steep tea bags. Okay, so that's the difference between mashing and steeping, and that's the difference between a mini mash and a partial extract beer, which is just extract plus some specialty grains. I hope that makes sense to you guys. So what I'm going to do here today is I've got my Maris Otter here, which came from More Beer. By the way, just let me turn this around. Sorry about the sloppy camera work. Okay, and my Cooper's kit, which already has bittering hops in it. Okay, so I don't have to do, swing around here. I don't have to do a 1 hour boil, because the purpose of the 1 hour boil in this situation would be to put hops in and make the hops go bitter, to add their bittering factor to the beer. But we don't need to do that because that Cooper's kit already has all that in there, and you don't have to boil it. As a matter of fact, you don't want to boil the Cooper's kits or any other pre-hopped kits. You'll ruin the hop profile. All right? I mean, if you boil them for a couple minutes, it's not going to hurt, right? But normally you don't have to. Okay? So my procedure here is basically going to be heat the water to 160, which I've already done. Steep my grains for half an hour, which I'm about to do. After that's done, I'm going to take those out. I'm going to bring that new water that's got the color and the flavors in it up to a boil. And then I'm going to start adding my extracts. The first one I'm going to add is the dry malt extract, because that's the hardest one to dissolve. Okay. The next one I'm going to add is probably going to be half of the Maris Otter, not the whole bag, but just half, because I want to make sure the hops don't have. I don't want to make the wort too thick, too concentrated, because that will limit the ability for the hops to give off their flavors. So I'm going to add half of the Maris Otter and bring that back up to a boil, and everything is boiling with those two grains, extracts added, the dry and the half of the Maris Otter. And then I'm going to start doing my hop additions, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and then I'm going to flame out and add the rest of the Maris Otter dry malt extract. Okay, and then I'm going to take that, I'm going to cool it down, pour it into my fermenter, and then add the Cooper's kit to that. Top it up with water. Bob's your uncle. We hopefully have a really interesting beer here. Now, if you guys can tell me if I'm crazy, this is a off-the-cuff recipe. I don't know how it's going to work. Okay? Please do comment down there. You can criticize me. You can laugh. You can do whatever you want. And we'll brew this up, and maybe by next Wednesday, or we'll see what happens. We'll sample the beer, and we'll see what the heck we got. All right? So it's time for me to get going here. Let's do this. Now, of course, these things are heating up in some warm water to make them easier to pour. I haven't got the heat on. I've just got some hot water in the pot here, and that's good enough. About 20 minutes, that's all they need. So I took the grains out after 30 minutes. You can see how dark that went. There's nothing else added at this point. So I'm going to bring it up to the boil, and before I get lots of steam, I'm going to add my dry malt extract, because the steam will clump it up on the edge of the bag. So if you get it in before that time, you won't get that problem. Just give it a stir. I'm doing this one-handed. This is not a easy home brewing video. It's just a homebrew Wednesday, so I'm just doing it sort of as easily as I can. And there we go. And then I'm going to add half of the Maris Otter malt extract. I've got about 10 liters of water in this pot to start with, so it's about half of the full amount of water that, or beer that we're going to have at the end, 20 liters. Okay, so I'm adding sort of, kind of 50% of the malt, maybe less, just to get the hops happening. All right, so I'm going to add that now. I can't do it with one hand, but I'll add half of this bag right now. Okay, that's been done. Half of, where is it? There it is. Half of that. And it was very easy because it was soft from the hot water that I had it soaking in. So I'm going to bring this up to a boil and then add my hops. And of course, you always turn off your heat when you add your extracts so you don't burn them. Make sure they're stirred in good. Smells kind of weird in here right now because not only am I brewing beer, but my wife's actually decided to make some sort of bread. So that's interesting. We'll see what happens there. All right, we've got a controllable boil here. You're going to get a little bit of foam when it first starts to boil. Just lower the heat, take it off the burner, stir it around. Eventually you'll get this nice rolling boil, and we're going to put these babies in right now and set the timer for 10 minutes. Okay, after 5 minutes, I'm going to put my fuggles in. The whole idea with this is because the Centennial is a higher alpha, and it's probably going to be quite potent, so I let it boil for longer, and then the Fuggles is a lower alpha, so it's going to be a little more mild, so we're going to let that one not boil for as long, just to give, hopefully, an aroma. All right, we've reached our limit here. 5 minutes for one, 5 minutes for the other, a total of 10 minutes. We're going to add the rest of our Maris Otter, stir that around, and we're going to add our Cooper's IPA, stir that around, and that's going to go downstairs into a fermenter, at which point I'm going to top up with cold water. I'll probably have to chill this down a little bit before I do that, and then top it up with cold water and add my yeast. And I'm just using the standard yeast that came with the kit. I know some of you guys are going to go, oh, why would you do that? Well, because I don't want to make too many different changes. I just want to add this. Plus, this yeast is pretty quick to ferment, and I actually like this yeast. It's good stuff. So we're going to add that, and we'll be back with you in a few minutes to conclude and with our final thoughts and our tip of the week. Hey, cheers. Okay, so that was a simple version of a brew. I obviously didn't show me putting it into a fermenter and putting the yeast and stuff like that, but I did put it into my Cooper's DIY fermenter. Really easy thing to use. You don't have to use an airlock or anything like that. Let's see, what else did I want to mention? I had to cool the wort down quite a bit before I pitched my top-up water and yeast. I did that in a sink full of cold water. I forgot about my wort chillers. I could have used those, I guess, but a lot of people don't have those, so just put the lid on the pot, get it cooled down as quickly as you can. When you're using 10 liters of wort, plus the extract that you add, it's probably going to be more than 10 liters. You're going to have to cool it down considerably before you put your top-up water in, okay? And some people use tap water, some people use, bottled water, from the store. Completely up to you, whatever you think is best for you. I use tap water. I've never had a problem with it. So, depends on where you live, I guess. So that is an experiment. You guys can tell me in the comments below how crazy you think I am. I did want to use that Maris Otter extract for something more extravagant, but it was getting to the point where I was wondering if it was going to start, going stale, and I don't have time right now to do a big all grain, so that's what I did with it. And I'm sure it's going to, the beer smells great. So it's the best I could really do at this point. And it is an experiment. There's no recipe involved here. I just threw it together. We'll see what happens, and you can tell me what you think is going to happen, and we'll try it. And I'll be completely honest with you. If it doesn't taste good, I'll just tell you it doesn't taste good. It didn't work. But I think it's going to be great because it smelled great. Okay, so that's that. Our tip of the week comes from Ivan. A fellow called, his name is Ivan, and he's got we'll do two tips this week, little short ones. Your old fermenters, okay? After a while, you got to replace them, especially like plastic ones, not necessarily the glass ones, but the plastic ones. After they get stained and you can't get the smells out of them, after a few years, don't throw them away. Use them as containers. Use them to store grains, to put equipment into, or even to sit on while you're bottling your beer. The other thing he says is when you store your empty bottles, put a little saran wrap over the top of each one of them to keep the bugs and the spiders and the dust out. I think, and this is my opinion, if you sanitize the bottles with Star San or whatever you use, and empty them out, you can probably put the saran wrap on top, and I'm sure you could keep them there for at least a week. And when you take the saran wrap off, they'll still be sanitized and ready to bottle your beer. Long-term storage, you're going to put them away somewhere. Saran wrap's going to protect them from dust, spiders, bugs, or anything else that might get in there. And then when you go to use them, all you have to do is re-sanitize them, and you're good to go. Okay? Those are our tips of the week. I think I'm done here. I really enjoyed making this particular Homebrew Wednesday. Sometimes I do more, sometimes I do less. Depends on what we're doing and where we're at. I hope to see you on my live broadcast on vaughnlive.tv/CraigTube, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday nights, every week, mostly every week. We play great music. We take Skype calls. It's a great time. A lot of people join in there, and they really enjoy it. So I hope you do too. 17brewcrew.com for all your brewing needs. tgtshirts.com for all your t-shirt needs, if you want to buy one of my shirts. And after that, I'm out of here. Thank you so much for watching. Happy holidays, by the way, and be safe. Cheers.